what happens is with racism is that racism, when it's brought to the front, is uncomfortable because when you pull back the layers, there's some people, right, that's going to see themselves as the victims and the enemy, the victims and the doers. You understand what I'm saying? They're going to see that. That's why people get upset with all the, or why you tearing down the Columbus? Because we never had an opportunity to let you know. Now when we have the audacity to say something, we should say something because we never did have a chance before on how this was built. You understand? Right. So let's just talk. We have to talk about that and the condition that we placed on it again. And Black people at times can't really articulate those things because they can't see it. You can't see colonialism, but it's still there because it's gentrification. You understand what I'm saying? Redline it. You know what I'm saying? Like, Philadelphia has one of the worst school systems. If the key to success is education, then why are you handing me a broken key?
Right.
I can't use it, or this is the wrong key to the door. You know, so let's talk about that. When you close down at least 10 schools in Philadelphia and all of them in the Black community. How? You understand what I'm saying? This whole plan with 2025 for Philadelphia, change the whole veneer of the city of Philadelphia, but you're not helping these people. And that's historically wrong. It is historically wrong, but guess what? It's true. Because when you mess with, when you build on top of people, that's still colonialism. You know what I'm saying? But just look that different. So when you do that to a people, they can't understand like why Black people going off or why you putting Black people on top of each other, or Black women can't have men inside of a house. And that's what you can't do now. I'm gonna put you in a public house. I'm gonna get you a nice house. But you can't have that little Negro in there. Separation of the Black family is no different from enslavement when they separated our families. Like, you understand what I'm saying? So it is a lot of things we could talk about. PTSD. One of the things is like feeling of not knowing what's going to happen next with your life. How many young people your age or that you mentor or you talk to said those things? I don't care if they out there shooting, selling drugs, whatever the case may be. I could pull a whole bunch of homeboys and say, yo, just be straight up with me. How long do you think you're gonna live? Y'all think it's about that money, and that's part of it. But the other part is that they know it ain't gonna last long. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That right there is something deep. Like, I don't have nothing to live for. This is all I got. You understand what I'm saying? So when I look at that, I'm like to myself as I said, how can I change the dynamics of that? It's not so much as what happened to me when I was younger. I could say what happened to me when I was younger. I could hate every white person that walked on the face of the earth because of what they did to my family. And I'll be all right with that. And people should be all right with that too. And for those that don't, I don't care. But I wasn't like that. What makes me this way is knowledge of self and have a better intellectual understanding of what's going on with our people. That's why I am the way I am. Educate yourself on where we come from. You have to go back, because if you go back to, for example, the Jewish, and you talk about Hitler, you got to talk about King Leopold in Berlin, who killed millions more, thousands more Black Africans than Hitler ever did to Jews. But we don't talk about that.
Yeah, never
talked about that. King Leopold, look it up. You understand what I'm saying? But we talk about Hitler. You talk about Hitler now, them Jewish people will, Jewish people will remind themselves of what happened in the past so it will not happen again. And I think it's time for Black people, since we got the permission to remind our history and what happened to us in order for us to move forward in consciousness, and then we can move to unity. So that's pretty much all, I kind of have. I know I went on a tangent, but I had to give you some history.
I mean, history is important. Yeah. Like I shared with you before, I've kind of, because of recent events, I've been digging more actively, engaging and trying to learn as much as I can. A lot of times I feel like we kind of run from the conversation, whether it's because, you feel hopeless, you feel like the system's never going to change. But I think now with the generation that we're seeing marching in the street, they're taking that knowledge and putting it to action. Having demands and knowing like, hey, these are things that need to change and here's why. It's up to the powers that be to, accept the fact that, all right, this is factual information. We have to do something about that. So it's like either they're going to acknowledge that our lives matter, or, we're probably going to have some more riots in the streets. And I'm not mad at it.
And these are the residual effects of brutality. You do this to a people. It's not just what they did to Floyd. This is what they did to Garner, Tommy Rice, Breonna Taylor, and the list goes on and on and on and on, probably to a two-story bed. Those are the ones that we don't know about. And that's just with the police department. We got to talk about race. Forget about police and community. We're talking about white supremacy and racism, institutionalized racism, systemic racism. This is the conversation I have to talk to, because now my son has to go out there and quell a problem where black people are where black people are because of the politician that can't get it together, and because of gentrification and all these other things that's against black people. And we as a people have to act a certain way because things are being done unto us we can't understand, but it makes you angry. Any group of people that's placed under those conditions is going to go lose their mind. I wouldn't even suggest, I don't know what they may do, but I know for black people, we're a beautiful thing because we made it this far, despite what we've been through. Okay, you can tell me what brother doing on the street and all this other kind of stuff. I don't care, man. There's a reason for that. I've been doing this too long to know there's a particular reason that I've been working with too many of them that I help see the other side. You understand what I'm saying? So with that being said, man, when there's an uprising of a people that have been marginalized for so long, there's got to be a response.
Yeah.
All around the world. You think about it. It happened all around the world. It was time. People were tired, right? And so when things burn, I guess some things had to burn, while the other side was the political side. You got certain groups that would burn stuff down because they won a daggone championship in the NCAA freaking football tournament.
Right.
You understand? That's why they burn stuff down. But for us, tired. I'm tired. Even Martin Luther King said that the riots are the voice of the unheard. You understand what I'm saying? He didn't go that route, but he understood. So that's what people have to understand. Like, at least have some sympathy towards why people are doing what they're doing, because that'll recover. The economy will recover. It might be jacked up. To be honest with you, like the politicians, they are got stuff kind of jacked up anyway. But I'm just saying, those things are kind of recovering. People that are doing it are tired, right? And they can care less. They just want to be heard.
Right. And it's like what drives me crazy is when people say, well, why not do it through voting or, working with your local it's like, we've been trying, that hasn't worked. That we're still here, we still don't matter in your eyes. That's why this happens. And like, I'm not out partaking in riots, but like I said, I'm not mad when they happen. I'm like, hey, if that's the means that you want your voice heard, then so be it.
Racism activates itself in every area of our life, no matter what you do and where you are, even as police officers. There's stories that we have at the water cooler that some of us are afraid to tell who we need to tell. Some of us are afraid because we feel as though we're not going to be unified. I say something, or they just don't know how to articulate myself. I do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I do. But nonetheless, we do experience some racism within our department. And if we be real with ourselves, man, and stop calling the black community hypocritical because they're not telling on, like when they have shootings out there, I'm like, are you going to protect that person when they tell who's shooting? Right. And I know we got some work to do. You know what I'm saying? I know that. And I'm one that's for my people and tell you, like, look, this is wrong. You understand what I'm saying? But I can police my own. No pun intended. We can have a conversation, a real conversation. But to say the community is hypocritical as a black officer, to use that's irresponsible, because as a black police officer, then I would say that you may be hypocritical in yourself, because one of your greatest responsibilities is endearing yourself to your own people. You understand what I'm saying? And not put them out like that, because there's some things going on that's intertwined with a race of people that has some doings as to why we act the way we do. You understand what I'm saying? The question is, Why do police officers do what they do? What's pushing them? That's a deep conversation, because when you
Yeah.
look at the face of brutality and what it looks like, you got to look at why did that do that? What's his home look like? How was he raised? And then he has children. Oh my God. Oh my God. And you're a police officer, officer of the law. You at the highest of height. What are you teaching your children? Is racism over? It will never be. Because when you have folks like that in the department and they do those type of things, and that's just ones that got caught, right?
Yeah.
What are they teaching their children? I'm not teaching my son to be racist. I'm not teaching well, first of all, that's another conversation. I'm not teaching my son to be,
Yeah.
white people wrong.
Yeah.
He's a cop. Things happen to him. He could have said, man, I don't want to be a cop with that incident. And we did report him. And guess what? Nothing happened to him. And I'm a police officer. He tried to ruin my son's career. He did a whole lot of things. And because I trained my son what to look for, he reported back to me, because I know as a black male, we have to train our children different than white people do. When they get stopped by a car, license, registration, and insurance. All three of those are the same with black male, white men. But then I'm teaching my son, keep your hands on the wheel. Answer, sir, be straight. Don't make no sudden movements. We got to teach our children that. But I train my son, if he's encountered with the police department or police officer, there's certain things that I need you to do, because it might go the other way. And it did go the other way, but because I trained him, because he's black, I was able to obtain some information, was able to make a report on an officer. The good thing is that the people that he tried to talk to ruin my son's career, I knew them, and I straightened it out. You understand what I'm saying? Because I'm a black father.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Who has a black son. So there's a difference in the way in which we raise our children with regards to race.
I was locking somebody up for being drunk. It was a white guy. And, I arrested him, and because he just couldn't, I tried to get him a way out, and he couldn't do that. He was a danger to himself. And I get, to the jail cell, and this dude, literally, as I'm explaining to the magistrate, that's how the process, we have to explain to them what's going on. And that's, if they issue the warrant, they find enough reason to give that warrant in order for them to stay at the jail or whatever. But as I'm explaining, as I'm quote unquote testifying, the dude is calling me a nigger in front of the magistrate. And he's just going off like literally multiple times. And the magistrate is just like, it's just like you're gonna like, she was just like, wow, you have a lot of patience. Like like this is crazy. Like is he really sitting there saying that? And that's what she was telling me. But I was just like, and I'm thinking about I'm thinking about the ladder. I'm thinking about when people cry out about George Floyd and what black people go through. And then I get that literally a week later, get this. I'm just like, I mean, where do I win? But, the things that I've gotten from that was, first and foremost, I'm going to explain with the white guy that I arrested. It's just, it's over. Like, at the end of the day, I'm getting a paycheck. I'm going home, sleeping in my comfortable bed. Like, this dude's in handcuffs. Like, I don't need to say anything. Like, I don't. Like, it's already done. So that's, and I think, and I think a lot of officers need to realize that, because there's some officers out there that just think that it's, it's who's the big bad man. Like they want to prove a point. They want to be aggressive. They want to stand and show fellow officers that, yeah, you can't mess with me. Even, when these individuals are in handcuffs, like and it relates back to the George Floyd thing. It's over. Yeah, but we're not here. We're not here to be macho. We're not here to see, and put it, for lack of better terms, whose balls are bigger. Like we're not here to do that. So, and that's what I grabbed from that. And with the girl that was yelling at, and I've experienced a couple more times where there today, which is and it's crazy that we're having this interview, this podcast today, is because I had a guy backtrack about like 2 weeks ago. Again, I was just sitting with one of my fellow officers. He's a black officer as well, and this guy is another black man was just walking his dog, and he just grilling us, just straight grilling us, and taking pictures of us, and like almost like trying to entice and just saying stuff we can't hear what he's saying, but he just like throwing his hands up and very, very, very dramatic, like just mean. I mean, we don't really pay it no mind. I mean, we're just like, what is this guy doing? Like, what's his problem? But we just ignore it just because of the climate that we're in right now. But today, the same guy was doing the same thing, and I was by myself. And I was like, and he's taking pictures of me, and he's just upset and yelling and carrying on. So I did something. When he walked his dog around the block, I rolled my window down. I was like, what's up, man? Like, what's going on? He said, dude, he was like, I parked in front of this fire hydrant multiple times, and I've gotten multiple tickets. But when all these other people are parking in front of these fire hydrants, nobody's getting a ticket. And he's like, they've been there for forever long. He was just upset. But I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, that isn't fair that you got a ticket and these people haven't got a ticket, especially with me sitting there and it's right in front of me. Mm-hmm. I didn't write a ticket. So, and today I was on a special assignment, but what I ended up doing, I was like, you're right, man. And I was asking them when it happened and when did he get the ticket. And I explained to them about like towing situations and how in Virginia it's a civil thing. So there's sometimes the property calls to get it towed. We never get it towed unless it's like a hazard or there's a couple of different other aspects to that. But typically the property gets the car towed, not the police department. But I explained that to him because he said he got his car towed, and somehow like his level like went from being aggressive, and he started to come down a little bit. And then I was like, and like I said, you're right, man. And I have the power to change. I have the power to be fair to everybody. And it wouldn't be fair if I just sat here, watch a car literally right in front of a fire hydrant, 2 cars right in front of a fire hydrant, and not say anything. I mean, first of all, it's dangerous. If the apartment complex went up in flames and there's cars there, mm-hmm. or they hit a ladder truck up there, those cars are in the way. Every second matters. Right. So for those cars to be there is a hazard, period. And I hate when people park in front of fire hydrants, period. And I was already thinking that even before the guy came up, but I didn't have my ticket book. But I ended up just going back to the station and grabbing my ticket book. I'm like, this dude is really right. Like, I can't just sit here and just let that slide. But I come back and, I do that. And throughout the day, I'm just sitting around the same spot. The dude comes back, and now this dude's smiling at me. This dude's telling me about his dogs. And he said, yeah, man, I paid $7,000 for this dog, but don't tell my lady though. Like, this dude, he's like opening up to me, and he's, and the second and third time I saw him, he's like, yo, man, do you need a water? Like, you good? Like, you all right? Like, and he's checking up on me. But this morning, he was grilling me like he was gonna come up and do something. But the point to take from that is just ask people what's wrong. Mm-hmm. People are so quick to put up a wall and be like, yo, this dude crazy, and just turn our heads as a police officer, because I mean, we deal with a lot of that every day, and it's almost like a desensitization. But a lot of these can be fixed. Just ask somebody what's wrong, what's going on, why, and it was something so simple like that. I'm thinking he's going to say, I just hate cops because of what happened. I just hate this. But he was just genuinely upset because he lives in an apartment complex. And, he's parked in front of the hydrant before and he's gotten a ticket, but these cars are out there and he just felt like he was treated unfairly. And who am I to say, it's in front of me. Who am I to say I'm not going to write these tickets? Why would I write these? Like, it's in front of me. And if say I didn't do anything about that, how does that make me look? I'm just sitting here and let this rock. But, when he did it, he got a ticket. So I was like, you know what? And I did it just because of that. I just, I took a little extra couple miles to go get my book, and I just wrote it because he's right, and we need to take that extra mile to understand what the cries people are saying is, this whole issue is not as simple as what this young man came up to talk to me about, but it was a step. Like I never seen somebody throughout a 12-hour day. I saw him in the morning, in the middle of the day, and before I got off my shift, because he was walking his dog. He walked his dog like 3 times and came out for food like once. And the first initial, he was aggressive and just swinging his hands. But then throughout the day, like this man, before I got off, he's like, man, you want a water? I want you to be safe out there, man. Like, if you sure you don't want a water, I just got me some food. You need something? Like, this dude is really trying to, be nice. But in the beginning, like I said, you would never thought. But because you heard, I understood where he was coming from, because I sympathized with him, and I would be upset if I was in his position, that if I parked my car and they kept getting a ticket, but then I turn around and then there's a couple cars parked there and they never get a ticket.
Yeah, I'd be upset too.
Yeah, I'd be upset too. At the end of the day, we officers need to learn to come to an understanding, and people just need to ask what's wrong, because you never know. You can make somebody into a friend just by basically asking that question.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that 100%. I'm not going to keep you guys too much longer. But, you hear a lot of people talk about reform and training. And like one of the biggest things that I think could probably be, one of the key factors in helping improve the relationship is, like you said, actually engaging with people, having that discussion. Actually formulating relationships with people in the community that you serve, so that you're not viewed as the enemy, and that they can be like, you know what, this person, I can actually trust them because they're actually here to help me. They're actually here to help make my life a better place. So what do you guys think in terms of and I don't even know if it's possible, if it's realistic. Like, we hear people talk all the time about implicit bias and things like that. Do you guys think there's any trainings or any room for improvement in regards to training and reform? Or do you think that, like, hey, people are going to make those choices based on the things that they believe? Is it any undoing it?
Well, you mind if I go, Mo?
Yeah, you good.
Ready?
Yeah, because I had some thoughts on this some years ago. Like I said, I'm on my latter part of my career, and my viewpoints are refining itself in its different viewpoints from that perspective. You know what I'm saying? From that perspective, that's where I'm at. I'm okay with that. But if I could give any offer with regards to how things could be a little bit better, we got to talk about behavior. We got to talk about the individual. How do you measure the individual's tolerance? How do you measure the individual's relationship when it comes to other races? I think one way in which you can do that is through a series of evaluations, maybe a series of questions incorporated into the hiring process, and then ongoing, because I can say there's officers that are white, right, that I've worked with side by side, and I'm cool with it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we work well together. And then with some officers, I did the same. And then when I went on their Facebook page, I was like, man, you a racist. You understand what I'm saying? So with that being said, how do you measure that? Maybe we need a series for everybody across the board, a series of evaluations throughout, I don't know what that would look like. It was quarterly, once a year. But I think there should be something done in that because of the historical narrative that have been built. And even still, some officers that take this job that are white and or black, that might not be them, but something could have changed. Mm-hmm. We don't know because of what they see. So I think we should incorporate that. I also believe that those that are considered for this job and that actually get through the process of becoming an officer now in the academy, I believe that they should, right? Now, this is a measurement, right, as to whether that person wants to do this job. You know what I'm saying? Whether you want to graduate, and it's also a barometer in which those that are responsible, that, and I don't think it should be all police officers. I think it should be people of the community a part of this as well, to kind of have at least some idea of who this officer is and their mindset. While in the academy, I would suggest that they would work in the communities in which they're potentially going to be working in, right? And primarily African American communities as they're in the academy, because the academy just teach you how to be a cop, how to be a soldier, and they may give you scenarios that's not real and they're real insensitive, because we have nuances, right? Nuances and you know what I'm saying. There's different things that we do. You might see a brother walk across the street jaywalking, but that's what we do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
It don't mean no harm by it, but that's what he do. That don't mean you run up on him, right? Give him a ticket, choke him out, or yell at him, disrespect him. We talk loud. We be on the corner, right? That's just the culture. You know what I'm saying? Part of the culture. So I would suggest that they may have to experience some of that from that side. And I'm not just saying have a training officer, because that's just through the lens of a police officer, soldier, soldier, soldier. I'm talking about through community leaders within that community. I had an opportunity to do ride-alongs with a leadership group in Philadelphia. I, being a community relations officer, I had to facilitate that. And I had a great time because I had people from all professions, black, white, whatever, Asian, that I had to do this ride-along with for about an hour, hour and a half, right? This one particular young man I had, he was my intern, my first intern. He was a white male. He went to an all-white university. Him and I were talking. He knew some understanding of black culture and even, school the pipeline. So he kind of understands that from that perspective, not from the perspective of a black person, but he understood it. So what I did, instead of teach him to police a community, I took him to places like businesses that was owned by black folk. You understand? Let him talk to some of the owners of those businesses, some of the workers of that business, right? I took this intern who was like 21 years old, white suburban kid, right? Who just won a Division II rugby. I think it was field hockey. I think it was something like that. He get mad if I say it different. But he had his ring and everything. Throwing was dope. It was big. But he was with me for like at least a month, right? But I took him to areas in which he would like kind of get a viewpoint from a black perspective. You know what I'm saying? I know he could sit down in that seat, but at least he could stand there and watch how things work out. So when if he so chooses to go along that path as a police officer or state police, he can kind of have some understanding of how we as black people, you know what I'm saying, are not a threat when they see us act in a certain way, the nuances and things of that nature. That's the best thing I could have done for him, and I think they should kind of implement that with the recruit. Because if a recruit ain't feeling it because he don't want to be around a certain people or he feel, it's going to come out.
Yeah, right.
It's going to come out.
Avoid
it. Conversation or whatever the case may be, it's going to show itself, hopefully. But at least we did our due diligence and try to monitor or measure the person's like intellect or how they move as an individual.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, you got to get your hands dirty, right? Not just with, the action, but also in getting to know the people that you're supposed to be serving.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess I'll ask you this because, it's kind of, I feel like it's our generation pushing for this, but what are your thoughts on, defund the police? I don't think we'll ever see communities where there is no police. But what are your thoughts on kind of the calls to abolish police or defund the police?
Well, there's a couple things that I see in that, and it's almost like I'm stuck in the middle again, because there's certain things in there where I was looking at it and there's like a 8 for change or something like that, where it's like 8 policies that people are trying to see. First and foremost, probably about 6 of those 8 policy or changes we already have it. So like I was saying, I can tell by that list that people don't understand that law, or may not know that law enforcement, there isn't there is the standard, but there isn't like an ultimate standard.
Yeah, it's not uniform across the board.
Exactly. So a lot of those things, like we were talking about the chokehold, they want that, scratched off. Well, that's been scratched off for us for years. And like my dad was saying, that for New York, been scratched off for years. So I think that that's one of the things where it sheds light onto law enforcement itself. Like maybe we need to come up with a way to have this standard for, to serve our communities. There's a set standard, like a clear standard for this stuff. But in terms of the and I've seen some other things where people were saying, hey, we need social workers or whatever to go to these calls, like mental calls that people are, emotionally disturbed or domestic disputes. I saw something where they said they should send a counselor to a domestic dispute. But that story I just told you started off as a domestic dispute. So domestic disputes and traffic stops are the most fatal for police officers. That's also, they said that officers shouldn't have, weapons when they're doing traffic enforcement. I can't tell you too much about this case because it's coming up, but I've gotten weapons off of a traffic stop. There's guns underneath a seat of a traffic stop. So it's there. And I would hate for somebody that's just enforcing traffic, has nothing to do with it, for somebody to get upset and then boom. I mean, they could do that to me, but at least I'll have a chance to defend myself. Now, there are certain situations where I also play the devil's advocate on the other side, to where I think in terms of psychologists, which again, in the state of Virginia, when we're dealing with somebody that's emotionally disturbed that needs help, we bring them to psychologists. So we don't take them to jail. That's not it. Yes. So it's diversion. So we take them to psychologists. So they're not under arrest, but they are in our custody. And we take them to a psychologist so that the psychiatrist can evaluate them and see their needs. And then from there, they go to a hospital to get evaluated medically. And then they get sent to another mental hospital in order for them to get the help they need, or they get the medicine that they need in order to be able to function. So we have that here, which I do praise. I do praise Virginia for having that, because I feel like a lot of smaller areas will benefit, from that, because everybody that does a crime, they need to be looked at, totality of circumstances. Like, why did they do this? Now, you got knuckleheads out there that just wreak havoc. Yeah, you put them in jail. But there's a lot of people that I've ran across that have done things that they're just not right. I've had a guy that was, that was thinking about college, and a year later, he starts getting on drugs and PCP, and he starts to act really sporadic. Like his mind, you can tell, is changing it. And this is somebody that had hopes and dreams. There's something that went wrong in his head, and he needs help. He needs help. He wasn't born to be a savage. He wasn't born to be that way. So my whole thing is, we definitely do need, and across the board, and like I said, I think Virginia is doing a really good job with that. But across the board and across the country, we need systems like that, to where we're not taking people to jail that don't need that. That's not going to help them. We need to find a way to help these people, and that's what with this whole defund thing. One of those points was, like I said, put more money into social work and more money into the whole mental health aspect, because I think that we're struggling with that. Mental health is something that is really big here. Like we have it like every week I'll go to or I'll see something that comes up on my screen as I'm working, for a suicide attempt, or somebody acting sporadic, or somebody that just wants help, but they're breaking laws and it's just not their natural state. And I don't believe those people need to be thrown in jail, because you throw them in jail, they come out, they're going to do the same stuff. They're not getting the help. They're going to keep repeating because they're not getting the help that they need. It needs to be tailored to what is going on with them. So that's with the whole defund. That's one part, I can agree. And I haven't really dove into it, but those were like the three things that I saw about the whole defund thing. And like I said, I get it. But it's being in situations where I've ran into guns on traffic stops, and I've ran into of a domestic dispute, somebody that was coming to do some harm. And it started off as a domestic dispute. So I'm very, limited to, 100% agreeing with that portion of it. But in terms of getting people the help they need, and what we're talking about with the Black community, mental health is a big thing. And, we touched on the psyche of what we've been through over the years. We've touched on that, multiple times. So that whole, there's arguments where, well, the Black people there's a huge population of Black folk, and like my dad brought up the war on drugs, like all of that incorporated into that. But the part that I want to bring out is the fact that we have not received the attention or the help mentally. And my dad touched on it multiple times. We have not received that help. And you were saying now we have a chance to talk about that. And with the defund the police, I think is a good idea to put money into the mental health aspect, because it's needed. It's needed. If you can't control your mind, your actions aren't going to be controlled, and the actions are what create the crimes. So if we're not getting to the root cause of what's going on for anybody, because mental health, it goes across the board. But like I said, I'm gonna bring it back because, mental health, it seems like the Black community is lacking that attention for our mental health. It's not the mental health, is we're savages. And, that can go into the whole media thing with mass murders. Oh, he's mentally ill. But then when it comes to us, is, oh no, he's a thug.
Yeah.
So and that plays a role. So it, like this whole that movement, like it has some light to it, and I'm really curious on what comes out of it. But that's my take, and I know my dad may have something and with that as well. So.
Well, yeah, Mo. You pretty much put a lot of things in perspective, and a lot of things that you're saying are very true. With regards to policy and the chokehold, I don't think that will change the way in which somebody that wears this uniform treat people. Policy does not kill people. People kill people. So that changes, and then it's going to be another way in which that person that has this evil way and thoughts towards another race, they're going to find a way, right? But I get it with the policy and everything, but ultimately it's more that has to be done dealing with the heart, right? Situations do dictate. We do here in Philadelphia have a response team that is put together by, I believe, the Department of Behavioral Health, where they will respond to those type of situations, right? Mental health situations. Or at the very least, we can make a phone call. For every officer that has a taser, that officer has to go here in Philadelphia a week of de-escalating situation with different groups. They bring in training, right? And they also bring in different communities that we may have to deal with that deal with mental health issues, such as veterans, right? Senior citizens, and every person that comes in that trains the officers while we're sitting there may have dealt with police officers when they may be going through an episode, an epilepsy episode, a senior citizen that just simply going to L-time, you know what I'm saying? All those things that may bring about behaviors that Maurice say that officers may say they feel threatened by. And it's not even a threat, right? Now, with that being said, that's a whole week that you're going through those trainings, and then we do a scenario-based training at the end. The following week, we do the taser training, which takes about 2 days, something like that, right? As a CIT trained officer, right, crisis intervention trainer, I have the responsibility to de-escalate. If I'm the only officer with a taser in the squad, if we have a potential mental health situation, they will call me to de-escalate that situation. Not because I have a taser, but because everything else that I trained prior to. I have to utilize that, like Maurice said, your voice, your training, your presence with the uniform. That's the first thing they see, right? So you have to utilize all that, and your last thing that you're to use, and sometimes you may have to, is the taser, right? There's a thing called force continuum. If I pull up on the scene and someone has a gun, right? You can't pull out a taser versus a gun or axe, right? If you go on the street and there's a bat and a knife, you got to figure out what's the one that's going to help you to win. You understand what I'm saying? So when the officer is pulling up on the scene, whatever level of threat that they meet, they have to meet that with it. Now, I would say this, right? It's not about the force continuum. It's for those that behold that. It's also the law, and those that behold that are supposed to enforce it. What a great responsibility to do that, to have all those weapons on you, all that authority on you, and to make sure you get it right when you're policing, right? It's a great responsibility. Now add that with an officer or a person that takes his job that's racist or think less of another race, and he has all those to his dispense or her dispense to use. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To use that in the wrong way to keep a person oppressed, right? Or to get over on them, right? Let me just say this. Maurice is cut from a good cloth, I think, right? The way in which he de-escalated that, he won someone over. I don't say be safe, officer. I might say be safe, but also make a friend. Maurice does that. That's why he's going to be very successful, right? Because that's what he does. I got all the equipment I can use. But the most powerful equipment is empathizing and trying to build a relationship with the people that you're supposed to protect and serve. That's the most powerful weapon, right? If I was to ask you, nephew, right? You play basketball, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Try to.
You try to, right? That's all right. But if I told you, hey, you know what, nephew, I need you to put on like some football gear. Come on over the weekend. Maurice coming down. We're going to play some football, right? You playing safety, right? And I give you all the plays, right? You athlete, gave you all the plays, right? I done changed the game up on you. But I expect you to go out there and be a football player, right? And be a mean machine and hit everything that you see, right? How would you do? You might look at me like I'm crazy, like, yo, I play basketball. You know that. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's different, right? And how be it me to expect you to perform at a high level of a sport that I know you did not play, right? Because what you do when you put a design in impact, right? Design impacts performance, right?
Mm-hmm.
You play ball. You might not be that well on the field, football field. I never put people in the place of what I do. I would never say to you, you see, I had to shoot that person. And you see, I saw that knife or I saw that, because you're going to respond as a civilian, not as a trained police officer. We had a responsibility and a duty to respond as a trained public servant. We had a responsibility to do that. Black, white, Asian, doesn't matter. And the public expects you to do that. That's what we get paid for. They pay taxes for that. So you respond accordingly. So to tell you, even to tell Maurice to respond the way I don't expect you to do that, and I wouldn't want you to do that, just to get you to say, you know what, I understand why you did that. And that's what I see at times. I've seen a lot of videos when we have these clearly shootings of unarmed men, where of the other side might come out with a video, say, see, I just put you through the scenario, and look what you did. You got shook and peed your pants. Or you shot that person. Now you understand. No, you put a rookie, you know what I'm saying, on the field. What do you expect them to do?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's very difficult. I don't get into that. I don't do scenarios because the situation dictates, but people respond differently, right? So, with that being said, there's a lot of things that we have to like kind of iron out, with the defunding. Maurice gave a great presentation about both sides of it, and that's true. But at the end of the day, we have to look at individuals' behaviors and their viewpoints, because that governs their actions.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? That's what I believe we should be kind of concentrating on more.
Do you think that officers need to have qualified immunity in order to operate? Or do you think there's some room to change that?
Well, I think with the whole qualified immunity, I'm not like with everything that it's involved. Still, from my understanding, and it protects an officer that works in good faith, and protects them from like any, I guess not any, but like civil liability, as long as is within the color of the law, as they call it. So I think that people are I think the intention was good because of the assumption that police officers are always going to act out in good faith. But at one, give an inch, people take a mile. So, and I think that's where we're running into, that wall, because I would hope that if I'm trying to save somebody's life, and, in the midst of it, somebody's ribs get broke or something, like something that will hold me civilly, without qualified immunity, will hold me civilly accountable, even though I was trying to help somebody and good faith really was trying to help somebody. I think that it's a good idea, but then on a ladder of that, people see that as officers taking advantage because there's no accountability being held. Mm-hmm. And that's why they see that as almost like a scapegoat. So it's that with that, it's almost like it's so hard to say how we can, address that situation, because if me or my dad or my uncle or my uncles and cousins in New York, like if they were in a situation and acting out in good faith, but because there's no, qualified immunity, now they're getting sued, and, now their whole life savings, their whole life is gone just like that. If they lose that case. So, but all they did was act out in good faith to save somebody's life. So I think it's like a tug and pull, like it's almost like tug of war with this. And honestly, like I said, coming from my perspective, and if something happened with me where I'm liable for what happens, but because I have the qualified immunity, I'm okay. Then it benefits me because I'm doing my job in good faith. But I also don't want it to benefit an officer that is out here trying to take advantage of that, if that makes sense. So, I mean, this is a complex, and I wish, I had the answer for that. But I know that there's a lot of good officers out there that work in good faith, and I would hate to see them lose with their 25 years of their life because they were trying to help somebody, but somebody thought it was a good idea to sue them, and now their money's gone. So it's just one of those things that there's officers that are ruining it for the good officers out there. So
I think that was perfect, because like for me, before you said all of that, I was in the camp like throw it out, right? And part of that is ignorance, not fully understanding the full scope of it and what it's intended to be used for. I think you making that differentiation between, officers acting in good faith and officers that abuse it and use it as a tool to not be held accountable is an important distinction to make. When you're describing the officer that's trying to do the right thing, trying to protect and serve and ultimately do what's best for, who's ever involved in the situation, I'm supporting it. I'm saying it needs to stay. Like he needs that because, like you say, he shouldn't have to worry about losing everything. But at the same time, when events do happen, there still has to be some type of accountability metric in place, so that people criticize you for being too patient. I think you probably have the perfect level of patience because you're thinking, what's the best thing to do in this moment, moment by moment. And that takes, it's like in basketball, the more, I mean, you've only been in your role for a year, but, the longer you play, the more the game slows down for you. The faster you can process information, you can process more information in shorter time spans. I think you're doing the perfect thing. You said the issue. Some people don't use it in that manner. And that's when, you have people saying it's on a list of demands to get rid of it, when maybe that's not really the best thing to do for everybody, because we got to work together. I believe, everything isn't, the police this, the police that. You got to work together to come up with a solution. My last question, what happened to all the POW centers? Like, I know, so I used to go to Officer Ashton's down at Arthur,
man.
and they cut that one, and I'll tell you, when they closed it, it broke my heart, because the one that they moved them to, I guess, in consolidating it, actually was probably closer to my house at Arden Reed, growing up at 23rd and Cross, right next to Tasker. And so that one was actually closer. For me, I stopped going probably out of fear, because that little, going from 23rd and Tasker to 30th, you kind of walking through a little war zone a little bit. So, I was more comfortable going across, but, I don't even know if POW centers are still around. They might be. But I can tell you, for the few years that I was involved, that was a big part of my life. It was a safe space. I was in a safe environment. I can do a lot of activities, whether it was basketball, chess, baseball. And, I just, you think about all the things to help fix the Black community. And, I feel like that was a good tool, because it kept a lot of us off the streets. When you close it, there's people that lived in that neighborhood where that POW center was, they're not traveling all the way to Arden Reed, especially if I wasn't. So now, where are those kids going? And now I know they're all not like me, where, if you're not going to a POW center, you're in the house, or, your mom put you in another activity, a lot of kids go to the streets, and we all know what can happen when, kids are kind of just out there, not with proper guidance. And I think another element of POW that I didn't realize, and my mom had to drill it into me, was they're actual police officers. So you're actually interacting with people that, could very well be out in uniform. And so, that kind of has trust there. For years, I'm like, Mom, he's not a cop, he's a POW officer. But no, he is a police officer.
Right.
So I think, I would love to see more POW centers. And for that, just knowing the impact it had on me and the opportunities that it gave me, I felt like that's something that communities need.
Yeah. And you know what, man? I'm glad you said that, because, you being a POW kid, so was Maurice, that,
Yeah.
You got to understanding of what POW is all about and the fun that it provided. You guys didn't think about the money that needed to be put into POW in order for you all to have those type of activities and enjoy them. But there was money that was put in from the private sectors. I believe there was some money from the government. Major sports teams gave money. Franchises and the like will give money to these efforts. And POW Center started from officers that felt the need to engage the community through sports first. And I think baseball was the first sport, just to keep the young people off the street. And then it just kind of evolved, and the theory of it is that every POW center is strategically placed in so-called inner city. I don't like to refer to that, but for context, I'm going to just refer to it as the inner city, where there's a high level of crime. And the whole philosophy was that if you put something in the area for those that are perhaps committing crime or could be getting in trouble, because they also based on statistics on when burglaries and things of that nature happens with young people and the ages. They put those in there so people have something more positive to do. I can tell you that some of the POW centers have closed because of some gentrification that was put in place. Because some of the schools have closed down or been marked to be closed down. So we gotta talk about that as well, right? And there's some other things that I don't really know about, but there's some things I know about that impact that community. And even if it's a little bit, just imagine my POW center, easily a day I would service like 100 youth, 100 to 200 youth, depending upon what was going on, right? Like on a daily basis. Sometimes numbers up and they
Mm-hmm.
fluctuate, right? Take one power center, right? Let's just say 100 youth a day from the ages of 6 to 18. That's 500, you know what I'm saying, students. They may be all the same at the same time, but you think about that. You take one power center, that's 500, right? That you're servicing. You took that service away due to those, systemic, things that have been put in place. That even the board, who is very powerful, Philadelphia Police Department, PAL, has the most powerful board of all PALs in the country. We are the only PAL centers that have on-duty police officers as the director of the PAL centers. Operated, ran by on-duty police officers.
Wow.
The only one, right? The numbers have gone down. And that's what I've seen throughout the course of the years, even while I was in PAL and while I left PAL, due to like some of the gentrification and those reasons. There's some, like I said, some other things like money that kind of dwindled. Like a lot of, nonprofit organizations have seen the same thing. It's just money, whether it's black, white, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the well is kind of like drying up. You understand what I'm saying? Because of the economy, and it's not like doesn't have a color or a race to it. But that's kind of like the long and short of it. As to what I know, there are some power centers that have like not reopened, but they have opened up in different areas of the city. You understand what I'm saying? Those that are in that wave of the gentrification, it's just the nature of the beast. They no longer in Pirates neighborhood. It's no longer the inner city. So the philosophy doesn't work for that type of environment.
And that's
so
where mine was.
You have to take it out. You have to move it somewhere else. And as the city continues to develop itself, then what's the use of the power centers? That's the question. As the city continues to move in that way, what's the use of the power centers? So is in danger. Is in danger, but there's still some left on. Just go on the website, you'll find out where they are.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check into them because if I can steer more young people there, it can only do good. Like I said, and like I coach high school at my former high school, so I always try to have conversations with guys about what life is like outside of my gym, because I only have them for a couple hours a day for, let's call it 2, if I'm lucky, 3 months out of the year. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, how do you impact them in that space so that when they leave it, they're doing the right things and hopefully taking their peers with them. I think that's one thing Powell did. Like I didn't, like my mom mentioned it probably, I wish, being a kid, we don't always listen to our parents. I wish I had gone when she told me probably 2 years prior to when I started going. It wasn't until a buddy of mine was like, hey, we can go here after school and play ball. And I was like, oh, for real? And then my mom, I'd go home, I'm like, Mom, sign this. And she was like, oh, you finally went to the Powell Center. And I was like, oh, this is what you were talking about. Like, oh, it's actually a great place. Like, oh, like, sorry. But yeah, it's just, so I'm definitely gonna look them up to see where they're located, because like I said, if I can, put that in my team's group me, whenever like post-pandemic happens, just so they know, like, hey, these are some good places to go, because I see our youth impacted. They hang around the wrong crowd, and it's trying to help them see, like, hey, this is the road you're going down. Reel it back. And in some cases I'm successful and some I'm not. But just making sure we're doing the most for our youth. And I think that's something that I see both of you do. You try to do what's right. It's not always about, like you said, holding a badge and this is the authority I have. It's like, hey, let me help you, have a better life for yourself. And ultimately that's what's important. So, you two are, I guess, redefining what it means to be a police officer based on, where police forces are rooted from historically. So, again, I thank you both for your service and what you're doing. And, like I said, I appreciate your time here with me today. I probably can't thank you enough. But I know this isn't going to be the last conversation we have. You know, when I have questions, I'm probably going to be hitting you guys up. And, you know, I will say on a personal note, like, you two are always on my mind, knowing what you guys do. So just know that I pray for you, brother. But, you know, and especially when we had that incident up in North Philly, when the guy was inside the house and, you know, firing shots out, my first thought was like, I wonder if is Unc out there? You know, it's just like, and sure enough, I'm watching the news, and that half second, I was like, that was him. You know, no question about it. So, you know, thank you. I appreciate what you do, but I guess, you know, the biggest thing that you guys do is, you know, make our communities a better place. So thanks for joining me today.
No doubt, man. Appreciate you having us.
No problem. All right. I love y'all, man. Take care.
Much love to you, bro.
Yeah, get some rest. And also, one of my players, actually, he plays at Arcadia now. He is freshman Jalen Watkins, coming off the bench. He gets buckets here and there.
Okay.
But I'm actually proud of him. I will admit that, you know, I was a little worried about him going there. I didn't know if he was going to quite make the jump to playing at that level. Yeah. And, you know, I was kind of steering him elsewhere a little bit, but his heart was set on going there. And actually, in my eyes, he's overperforming, which is great. And I think he's enjoying it. So, you know, if there's an opportunity, I'll connect you too. But yeah, he's having a good time.
For sure. Go Knights.
Yeah.
That's what you imparted in him, man. That's why he's where he's at, man. Because a lot of things that you had given him, man, he's going to do fine, man. Just stay with him.
I will.
Yeah.
All right, y'all take care.
All right, bro. Love you, man. Take care.
Love you too.
What you're doing, man. I'm proud of you, brother. I'm proud of you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Mo. I love you, bro.
Love you, Pop.
All right.